to you. Okay, welcome. I'm Gwenola. I'm a senior lecturer in French and academic skills. Elwyn?
I'm Elwyn. I'm responsible for English language teacher training in Dell.
I'm Raef. I'm the student from the project.
So some of you have probably attended our presentations on MexCo, and we have evolved now from MexCo to Coco. You're going to discover in a few minutes what Coco is. Before we do this, we're going to show you a little bit our background for our research. So we work with Marina. Marina's disappeared. Yeah. On 100 Dell. 100 Dell is a compulsory module for French, Spanish, and English students for Dell, Department of English and Languages. This is a module where students learn how to understand academic skills from the very first year, and they get to discover how these academic skills help them professionally. So they get to understand how these academic skills help them develop professional skills from the very, very first year by looking at academic writing, group projects, digital and presentation skills in general. So as I was saying to you before, we started a few years ago with MexCo, which is an intercultural project with Mexico. We started with Mexico City, and now we are working with Monterrey. That was HEA funded. And the way it was working is that it was built within this compulsory module from the start. It was Moodle supported. Students were assessed on their participation in the project through different means. They had to show that they were collaborating with their partners through their online exchange via a portfolio. It's interesting that you mentioned the language question, because it's a question that we've always had. And when we started with MexCo, not all of our students obviously spoke Spanish. We had students in French, and that's a question that we've always had. Now that we've evolved and we have Coco and Coco, another project that we're going to talk to you about in a few seconds, this question is even more predominant now.
We can skip this one.
Yes, we can skip it because it's something that's been raised by Dagmar. We have the same institutional framework, the global graduate, except that we have one slight difference. We've benefited from from participating in MexCo, because we've understood that students need to go a little bit beyond this global graduate perspective, and they need to start understanding what they need to really look at when they are interacting with another culture. They need to look at the social benefit, the social stereotypes that emerge when thinking about the other culture. And this is this part here that's been raised by O'Dowd and Byron, for instance.
Okay, so just to build on what Dagmar mentioned about 21st century skills and the knowledge society, this is what we're preparing students for. And some of the key abilities and skills involved there are critical thinking, creativity and innovation, which Dagmar also mentioned, cross-cultural interaction, and all of these things we're facilitating through projects like this, and obviously Dagmar students and mixed students as well. And we've linked it also to these principles sort of laid out by UNESCO for the development of the knowledge society. And so our graduates should be able to do all of these things basically, and be familiar with cultural diversity, which we're hoping they're developing through communicating with the students in Mexico, in Turkey, and in France. We hope it enriches their education experience. Obviously before these oil projects, it would have been very difficult for them to have contact with students in all these places. There's a couple of screenshots of the activities look, we've got the same activities for the different groups of students communicating with different groups in the different countries.
Can I just thank the announcement unit, the learning announcement unit, for helping with this? Because it was actually research and it was negotiated with the partners, but without Michelle, Amanda, Fitz and Dorota and Alan and now Louis, we couldn't have done it. So we know how to thank them.
So we've basically got 4 tasks that they work on in small teams with small teams in the other countries. The first task is an introduction video that they made presenting themselves and their university, and then of course they can go to each other's links
And you have the handouts.
and post comments
the
on
different activities.
the videos. Yeah, they're on the handouts. Activity 2 involves looking at stereotypes in cinema. So it's a specific focus on what are usually negative stereotypes. They find video clips online and post them, and then comment on each other's videos, and then a discussion revolves around the stereotypes. How did they come about? Are they really true? What do you think? So there's lots of discussion around stereotypes, and hopefully that helps the students overcome the stereotypes that they have of each other. Activity 3 is a set of cultura questionnaires which were developed by researchers at MIT. It's all about reactions to different situations, word associations as well, and they reveal a lot about a person's culture. So the students then in the different countries look at each other's responses to the word association and the different situations, such as you see a mother smacking a child in a supermarket. What do you do? That kind of thing. Okay, and these are the key concepts that we're dealing with through these projects. And forward to Raef.
So we've got the key concept of cyber pragmatics. As already mentioned, one of the aims of this sort of module is to encourage students to be digitally literate global citizens. I found it interesting how some of the biggest issues that have come up have been related to the more subtle elements of cyber pragmatics. So for instance, it can be tricky getting the balance right between being friendly and familiar, or some people struggle with having conversational while also still conveying a clear message. Obviously, it's easy to misinterpret someone's tone or intended meaning over the internet, so clarity is really important. In terms of switching between linguistic genres and registers, that's something everyone needs to learn to do, especially in a culture like ours where we're so reliant on the internet. Students want to be employable when they leave university, and an aspect of professionalism requires cyber pragmatic competence. So it's things like knowing I can start a chat room post with yo, and I can start an email to my tutor with hey Tim, but if I'm contacting a lecturer I've never spoken to before or a prospective employer, I need to take a more formal approach. That shows how adaptable you need to be, because both of those are computer-mediated forms of communication, and yet even they require different styles of writing.
In the handout, you will find a little, yes, you created it. Right at the end, you have guidelines that Raef created for our current students, and something that our students found very valuable.
Adaptable to the program, not completely original. Some students thought that these guidelines were really obvious, and I mean, you might all agree because they are basic rules, but they weren't always adhered to in the past by Coventry students on the Moodle forums, so we thought it was necessary to provide some preparation. As you can see, we've included advice on politeness and clarity. So for example, we discourage the use of next speak because it's not universal. And we say don't use slang because that's not inclusive towards non-native speakers. And although even contractions like don't and won't, although it might feel more natural, if the recipient only knows standard English, they're going to have trouble understanding. I think the issue that surprised me the most about this project is that maintaining a conversation in the forums has been really problematic for some students. The participants whose posts successfully engaged with people tended to express an interest in the other culture and share information about their own. This invites a response by following the process of polite face-to-face conversation. Unfortunately, it seems like some students lack the cyber pragmatic competence to adapt their existing registers to an intercultural environment, and that can interfere with their ability to develop informed global perspectives. But that's what this module is trying to help them do.
1 minute.
This module is little by little helping students overcome stereotypes thanks to these online discussions. Students are starting to think a little bit about the way that they are portraying themselves as well online. We have different examples that you can have a look at as well. Thanks. We can just show you very, very briefly the beginning of...
I got Graham.
Sorry.
We'll be online. We'll put them online so you can have a look.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you, Marina. And some of you have already heard us talk about threshold concepts when students feel that there might be a barrier when they are doing such an intercultural project that they need to cross. And we have discovered through this second project now that we are, the students are actually facing two different thresholds. One that is more cyber-pragmatics related and the other one that's more culture related. And that has led us to different hypotheses. We are starting to think about the way that students are becoming linguists, the way they are becoming employably graduates, the way that they are becoming researchers, and we are becoming researchers as well, and how we deal with students who have these different languages as well.
It's a nice way to close. Thank you.
Can I just also thank Raef, because that is a student, and that's what this is all about. So the more students we get involved in these sessions, the better.
Raef has been pivotal. Year one. He's done 3 years of this, so he's very involved. Greg, you want to come and sit up when we take questions? Thanks. Yeah. Yes, a question from Alison and one from Tim.
It may be similar, I don't know. I'm just looking at some of the instructions here as to the topics to ask people overseas. And I noticed there's nothing about literature or creative writing. And we have students on the 100 Del who often say to us that they're finding it difficult to actually find a link to their subject area. So I just wanted to ask.
Greg, you want to answer that?
We have had complaints about that, so we're kind of thinking of ways to develop, to bring in the degrees so that it's a little bit more. So they can,
we are bringing in cyber pragmatics, and we think creative writers need to know about cyber pragmatics.
Yeah,
we really think Netiquette is something creative writers should. In fact, we've just done the workshop, and the creative writers were the only students who got the wrong answer on the task.
Well, they haven't done it yet, because next semester we go into cyber pragmatics.
But can I just say, they were the only one. We showed them a very rude example of interaction, and they said that was fine. And that exercise had been designed by Raef for them, in a way, with Fiona. So, you know, it was actually the creative writers who got it wrong. The only group which did not realise what
we're doing it next semester, so we do need to talk, I think.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
It's just only 10 credits, Alison.
We are starting to realise that, of course, some students are benefiting more than others. For example, linguists.
When? Later, with Alison.
Yeah, okay. No, but it's just
we can't.
Yo, Ray, what happened to the students who didn't adapt?
Which one?
You said some students. Had displayed competence and others didn't. I mean,
we're still trying to encourage them to develop it, but
it takes a lifetime. I mean, I'm still ruled online, so. Okay.
I wonder what the value of the module is then. I mean, was it just some people are now good and some people aren't good?
it seems to be almost instinctive. Yeah, but hopefully you can teach it.
Can I ask for us to have a departmental chat?